I'm sure nearly all of you have watched the Jurassic Park or the Jurassic World films, and if you haven't, I can almost guarantee you still heard of T-Rex, Triceratops, and maybe even Pterodactyl. They're some of the most famous prehistoric animals on the planet, and if I asked you when they lived, you'd probably say the Jurassic. That's the whole point of the name. Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. It's right there in the title. Well, as much as you may not believe me, none of that is actually true. Two of those three animals never set foot in the Jurassic period, and the third one isn't even a dinosaur at all. So if T-Rex wasn't there and Triceratops wasn't there, then who actually was? What was running around this planet 150 million years ago when the name Jurassic actually applied? That's exactly what we're covering today, the real mystery of the Jurassic and the lies almost everyone has believed. So before we get into who actually lived during the Jurassic, we first need to understand what the Jurassic was, because most people, understandably, just hear the word and picture dinosaurs in general. But the Jurassic is a specific, defined period of time, when the world during it looks very different to what most of us imagine. The Jurassic period ran from around 201 million years ago to 145 million years ago. For context, that's longer than the entire amount of time that's passed since the dinosaurs went extinct. And at the very start of the Jurassic, the Earth still had one giant supercontinent called Pangaea. All the land masses we know today squashed together into one single shape. But during this period, Pangaea began to slowly pull apart. Cracks formed, land started to separate, and by the end of the Jurassic, you can actually start to see the rough outlines of the continents we recognise today. The climate was also completely different to what we have now, and very different to the later Cretaceous period that people often confuse it with. The Jurassic was warm almost everywhere, with very little evidence of ice at the poles. The kind of climate that lets things grow fast and grow big. And when it comes to what was actually growing, this is really important to understand. There were no flowering plants yet. None. No flowers, no fruit, none of the colourful plants we associate with the lush environment today. Instead, the Jurassic was covered in ferns and other shrubs and greenery. The humid climate and the abundance of greenery created the perfect setting for large animals to grow. One of these dinosaurs is one you may have heard of, and it's also one that the Jurassic Park and World franchises got right. This animal was in fact Brachiosaurus, a large sauropod dinosaur you may remember from that iconic opening scene in the original Jurassic Park. It was around 40 feet tall and stretching over 65 feet in length, with most of that height coming from the enormous neck built to reach treetops. It lived in what is now North America, grazing through dense forests in herds, and its sheer size meant it almost had nothing to fear. But almost is doing a lot of the work in that sentence, because while the fully grown Brachiosaurus was effectively untouchable, the Jurassic was not a world without danger. It was not a peaceful place where giants wandered freely with nothing to worry about. There were always creatures waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And the reality of travelling in herds tells its own story. Animals don't develop herd behaviour because the world is safe. They develop it because staying together is the only reliable defence against something that wants to pick them off one by one. Even for an animal the size of Brachiosaurus, there was safety in numbers. Which means the threat was real enough to shape how the entire species moved and lived. The fossil records back this up. There is evidence from the Morrison Formation of large theropod teeth found in sauropod bones, clear signs that predators were regularly interacting with these animals, not just scavenging leftovers, but actively targeting them when the conditions were right. So what creature was so fierce that even the mighty Brachiosaurus had to factor into its daily existence? This creature was in fact Allosaurus. Allosaurus is not a new name, most people have heard of it at some point, but hearing a name and actually understanding what an animal was are two completely different things. And Allosaurus was one of the most underappreciated predators of the entire fossil record. It first appeared in the fossil record around 155 million years ago, and dominated the Morrison Formation for millions of years, not just surviving, but thriving in enormous numbers, relative to the other large predators of the same time period. Sites like the Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry in Utah have produced the remains of at least 46 individual Allosaurus specimens from a single location. For context, we have fewer T-Rex specimens from the entire world. This was an animal so well suited to its environment that it was everywhere. It grew to about 35 to 40 feet in length, and weighed somewhere in the region of 2 tons. Built on 2 powerful legs with a long tail, it was fast and agile in a way that the later, heavier tyrannosaurs simply weren't. But the most interesting thing about Allosaurus isn't its size or its speed, it's its skull. The skull of Allosaurus was enormous relative to its body, but it was also surprisingly light. The bones were riddled with openings and air pockets, reducing the overall weight without sacrificing the basic structure. And the jaw, rather than being built for a bone-crushing bite like T-Rex, was built for something else entirely. The teeth were serrated and blade-like, built for slashing rather than crushing, and evidence suggests Allosaurus may have used its upper jaw almost like a hatchet, driving it down into prey repeatedly rather than clamping down and holding on. It was less of a vice and more of a knife. That hunting strategy opens up an interesting question about how it approached something the size of Brachiosaurus. One leading theory is that Allosaurus targeted the neck. A long slash across the underside of a sauropod's neck, delivered at speed, could cause enough blood loss to bring even a massive animal down over time. Whether it hunted alone or in groups is still debated. Some sites show multiple Allosaurus individuals associated with the same large prey, which some researchers interpret as evidence for loose cooperative hunting. Others argue these were simply multiple individuals drawn to the same carcass, the same way multiple lions might feed on one kill without having worked together to make it. The honest answer is we don't know for certain, but either interpretation describes an animal that was highly effective at exploiting the largest prey in its environment. It also wasn't alone at the top, sharing the same territory with other large predators including Ceratosaurus and Torvosaurus, meaning Allosaurus wasn't just competing with its prey but were with rivals of its own size. The fact that it remained the most common large theropod across the entire Morrison Formation despite that competition says everything we need to know about how well adapted it was. Anyways, that's about it for the video today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and comment, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.